Hey everybody, this is Diesel from Imagineyourgoddess, and today we are starting to show our set 9 builds. And so I'm going to show you guys a Illuminal Dragon build. Now this build, I've only been playing for about a week. As you guys know, I had a Blau Kluger deck. I really enjoyed Blau, but I'm playing Illuminal now, and I've just been loving it. It's been so much fun. It's always interesting, it's always amusing, even if you get terrible luck. So when you have great luck, it's really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Beast Deity White Tiger. Now I'm going to reference this card a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you the effects. It has the Forerunner effect, obviously, that when a Nova Grappler rides it, you pull it back. But the effect that's important is when an attack it boosts hits the rear guard, you can counterblast 1, and put it in the soul, and stand a Beast Deity rear guard. Okay, now this is essential for the way the deck works, and I'll explain later, but overall, very, very good starter for this deck. Let's go into the triggers. I am running 8 crit triggers. And one of the crit triggers I'm running, 4 copies of, is Red Lightning. When it gets put into the soul, you get the unflipped damage. Unflipping damage is very, very essential for this deck. So running them and using them is not that big a deal. Go ahead and use them if you can, if it will mean getting some effects off, which I'll explain later. Then I'm running 4 draws. I like draw triggers for hand replenishment in this deck, especially since cross rides take a while, so getting some cards in hand is great. And then, of course, 4 heal. Now, not every deck runs 4 heals, and I noticed recently that I saw a Japanese deck run 10 crit, 4 draw, 2 heal with this deck. And it's really interesting to see how the Japanese meta is different from our own, because we feel that 4 heals is essential. It's a staple. So I tried it that way for a little while, but I like having heals because it gets rid of unflipped damage and gives me more chances to use... Gets rid of flip damage and gives me more chances to use unflipped damage. So that is my trigger lineup. I'm going to do a different format today and show you guys my grade 3s. I run 4 copies of Azure Dragon and 4 copies of Illuminal Dragon. This is the ride and the cross ride of this deck. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about these because these are really, really, just awesome cards and really trigger everything in the deck. Azure Dragon has a Persona Blast that when it hits, you can stand 2 creatures. And Illuminal Dragon has an effect that you can counterblast 2 or counterblast 3 when you have 4 or more damage, and stand 2 Beast Deities when he attacks a Vanguard. He does not have to hit. So on hit effect, just when it attacks. But they both stand 2 creatures, and in this deck, normally you'll be able to stand 2 creatures with Azure Dragon, as long as you have the appropriate amount of Beast Deities. Which this deck is running all the Beast Deities that are currently out. When set 10 hits, there will be more Beast Deities to run. You'll have to make choices, but in the meantime, I like the way these run. You almost always want to cross-ride. If you can cross-ride, wait the turn, it's worth it. The 13 adds a very, very defensive setup and gets you going for multiple attacks. Okay? Now we will talk about the grade 2s. This deck runs 4 copies of Black Tortoise. Black Tortoise, when it hits a Vanguard, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck and get an Azure Dragon. Very good. It's a grade 3 fixer. A lot of people don't like this card because it's an 8K. I love it because you can stand it and do it over and over again. The worst case scenario is your opponent, you swing for 8, your opponent blocks 5, you swing with your Vanguard, get to stand them, and then you swing for 8 again, and they have to guard again. It usually works out to your advantage every time. Then I run 4 copies of Beast Deity Golden Anglet. Now, Golden Anglet has the same effect as Dancing Wolf. When he gets stood, he gets 3,000 power until end of turn. So he combos well with multiple standing. You attack with him, you stand him with one of the White Tiger-ish effects, then you swing for 12, you stand him again, you swing for 15. it can really become a power boost, especially if you put a trigger on it during the round. And then we have 2 copies of King of Sword, the 10k vanilla. You run King of Sword right now because you need some power in the deck. King of Sword with a tough boy behind him is 18. It's always worth going for. Always worth the risk. Okay? And then finally, we'll go into the grade 1s. I run 4 copies of Beast Deity Blank Marsh. Blank Marsh is a 7k booster that has the same effect as White Tiger. So it gives you that multiple stand option that we were talking about earlier. This helps you combo into really cool games. Then we have 4 copies of Claydol Mechanic. Claydol Mechanic is a 7k booster that when you put it on, when you call it to the field, you can unflip a damage. That's why I run 4. When I get a good game going, I can use Illuminal Dragon's effect 3 times in one game, just because of the damage on flippers. And that can be devastating to an opponent. Then I run 4 Perfect Shields, which we've talked about before. In our meta, running 4 Perfect Shields is pretty much a given. And really, if you think about the math behind it, running anything less than 4 Perfect Shields, you're setting yourself up for failure. Finally, I run 3 copies of Tough Boy, the 8k vanilla. If there were another Beast Deity booster, I'd be running that. But in the meantime, Tough Boy, he makes good columns. He's solid. You could use Dancing Wolf, but then you would have to rely on Azure Dragon's effect because there are no stand triggers in the deck. One of the ways that I would like to test this build is with just 2 stand triggers in there, just to give it a shot. But for now, I really like the way that this works. So I want to show you guys real quick a setup for a really good turn with this deck. So just give me 1 second, and I'll have everything set up for you on the mat. Alright folks, and I'm back to show you guys the ideal setup for this particular deck. So let's assume that you're in a 4 or 5 damage environment at this point, okay? Limit break is possible, and for whatever reason you haven't gotten to stand before this point, which is okay. You want to be able to stand as much as possible. Sometimes you do it on 2, sometimes you do it even on 1, but in general, you know, turn 3, turn 4 is okay. Okay? You've got an Illuminal Dragon with Azure underneath it, and you've got 2 11Ks on the sides. Now, I could show you the same thing with Golden Anglet, but speaking from just being in an 11K environment all the time, having 11Ks on the sides are really, really good for this setup. Okay? This is what we'll be running. So let's say you have some similar setup to this. What you would do is you swing with Azure Dragon. That's an 11k at their Vanguard. They flip, no damage. You get to swing another 11k at their Vanguard. Okay? Now, even at this point, if they hit a damage with a trigger or not, you're still in a pretty safe position. That's 2 damage, hopefully, or at least 2 guards for these setup. Then you swing with your 18, and you flip 3 damage to stand these 2. Now, there's another way you could do it, adding in a booster on one side, and then hoping that they don't block the Vanguard for this. But at this point in the game, they usually are going to try to perfect your Vanguard, because a crit trigger can end everything. Okay? So you have a setup for 18k coming at them. They can't take it, or they do take it. Either way, you're in a good setup. You have 2 18k columns left over, plus triggers. And the amazing thing about setting it up with plus triggers this way is if they do perfect shield your Vanguard and you hit a crit trigger, you can put the crit trigger, say, on one of the Azure Dragons. And then you can attack for 23 double crits. And if it hits, counterblast 1, put this into Soul, stand it again, swing 16 double crit. These kind of setups will wreck your opponent's field. It is totally worth the extra counterblast, the setup, and it happens more often than you'd think, because with the extra draw triggers, with the black tortoises, you're getting grade 3s pretty steadily unless your opponent has just been blocking you all game long, which is really hard for them too. You can minus their field, minus their hand. If they hit a trigger early in your attack steps, you can clear rear guards with this effect and just set up for the next turn without getting too overly hype about it. But that's what's great about this deck, is there's so many options for you to do things. So that is my Illuminal Dragon deck. I hope that you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys give it a shot, because a lot of people talk like Illuminal Dragon's not worth trying. I'm telling you it is. It is so fun and so worth the risk.
It's cheap right now, too.
Yeah. And so, thank you for listening. I hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know how you like the new format, the new setup. Tell me what you like about the deck. Tell me what you don't like. And as usual, we'll see you later.